I'm the Senior Program Officer for Arts and Culture at the Pittsburgh Foundation. I am co-presenting with my colleague from the Heinz Endowment, Shonda McGill, and also my colleague from the Pittsburgh Foundation, Katie Potts. We have some support from our Center for Philanthropy. Katie Bologna is on here helping us as well. I don't know if you see her, but if not, just know she's here. If you do not feel comfortable with the recording, please turn off your camera, and please mute once again when you have the ability to do so. So Advancing Black Arts is a joint partnership between the endowments and the Pittsburgh Foundation. And with the program, we envision a greater Pittsburgh region where Black creatives and organizations advance Black culture, who are advancing Black culture, have access and opportunities to thrive. The program goals are to build careers and support the lives of individual artists, increase the sustainability of cultural organizations that focus on Black arts, build community awareness of the Black arts sector, support efforts towards greater collaboration and elimination of racial disparities in the larger arts sector, prioritize the documentation and discussion of Black artists' work and well-being as part of the region's cultural health, and support work that directly addresses and calls for the eradication of systemic and structural racism that allows for these disparities to exist. So before we get into talking about the different funds of streaming, we just want you to note that arts organizations that are seeking support must have a history of producing and presenting Black, African-American, or African diasporic art. Grantees must demonstrate reasonable attendance as well as accessibility to a broad and diverse public audience. And if you are being invited to apply for operating support, please be mindful that you're not eligible for other funding streams. Eligibility starts with the things that all applicants must be at least 18 years of age by the time of submission, identify as Black, African-American, African, Caribbean, Afro-Latinx, or of the African diaspora, or be a Black-led 501c3 organization. Or you may work with a non-Black fiscal sponsor if you identify as one of the identities I just read. You have to be in the Pittsburgh region. Applicants in the following counties: Allegheny, Armstrong, Beaver, Butler, Fayette, Greene, Indiana, Mercer, Lawrence, Somerset, Venango, Washington, Westmoreland. You can all apply. And also, if you were applied, if you received a grant, you have to take 1 year off from the close of your grant to reapply. I know that was a mouthful. So if you have any questions, please, again, do not hesitate to ask. I wanted to start with those things because if you do, you're ineligible, if you want to hang out with us, feel free to. But if you're not, you can always feel free to fall off, and no shade if you're ineligible. So we're going to start to go through the guidelines, and I'm going to screen share, but I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague, Shonda McGill, as we bring up the guidelines to go through.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's late, and we're grateful that you joined us here and that you're interested in the program. I think if Celeste and I had our way, we'd hear everyone kind of state their name and what they're here for, and just get your voice in the room. But just due to time, I know it's not feasible for us to do so, but we hope to have some time at the end to hear questions and be a little bit more responsive. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And just for anyone who needs to know, I have a ponytail with some curly hair on the top, some tortoiseshell glasses, black shirt, and a white background. I'm in the office here at the Heinz Endowments. We're just going to go over the funding streams really quickly. In terms of the individual artist support, so there are many streams, and what I want to just start with is that I think one of the things Celeste and I were intentional about, we're trying to make sure that people could find their way into the program in many different ways. Before, many of you may remember that there was 1 year you may have a project stream, 1 year you may not. 1 year you may have this, you may not. So one thing we try to do is just open it up. So although there are many streams, the purpose of that is because oftentimes people find themselves in different places. So individual artist support is pretty straightforward. You can receive up to $15,000 for individual artist support. It is for artists who identify as Black, African American, African, Caribbean, Afro-Latinx, or of the African diaspora, and whose work of any discipline focuses on the art of Black people, African Americans, Africa, and the larger African diaspora. It is used to support your creative and career development. You can also do a self-organized, like artistic stream for yourself. So you might say, I'm going to curate what my individual artist work is going to look like. This is what I am doing. It's not necessarily connected to a specific outcome of a project. And as you will see, presentations of a fully realized work are not required. It really is about helping artists to have time for the process, to experiment with new works if that's what they want to do, and also self-curate some of the outcomes relative to your artistic process. So that you can be awarded up to $15,000, and the deadline is on the first Monday of May. In terms of other individual artist support, we also have culturally relevant residencies. So these residencies would last a minimum of 3 months. So a minimum of 3 months to a maximum of 18 months. And it is for arts administrators, so not just for creatives in the way that we tend to think of artists, but arts administrators as well, arts workers, curators. You could apply for up to $10,000 for the residency support, and organizations that are seeking residencies may apply for amounts up to $20,000. There's some definitions around, what we define artist residency as that you can read, as well as, arts administration. So please take note. And I do think it's important to just review the please note section. So competitive residency proposals will demonstrate significant artist or arts administrator involvement in the development of a residency. Sometimes we see organizations applying, they have not even really talked to the artist. They have an idea, they know what they want to do, and then they're applying for it. And we don't hear the artist's voice in the application. We don't know how the artist is engaged. And for us, it's important that the artist be centered in the work. And so if we don't hear that voice, we don't see it, and we don't understand how the artist is centralized in that time, it's not as competitive of an application. 2/3 of the project cost should be directly related to artist fees or production expenses. So it is also not an opportunity for organizations to kind of utilize for their overhead. We know all organizations need general operating support and are struggling during this time. Well, some are, I'm not even gonna say, because many are doing better than they were pre-COVID because they had to restructure. So, but we do know the challenge with that. But 2/3 of the funds should be used directly for artist fees or production expenses. And also residencies should last a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 18. I know I repeated that earlier, I'm repeating it again, but I hate to see applications come in and we have to disqualify you because you say you want a residency and it's 2 months, or you want a residency and you only outline a month, or you outline 5 years. It is a minimum of 3 months, a maximum of 18 months. The next stream that I'm going to talk about, there's 2 more. So the first is advancing the field. I think our predecessors had really high hopes for this, and so do Celeste and I. I think we've outlined examples because we always look forward to the ways in which people would take this on. In recent years, we've gotten more applications for advancing the field, but maybe not as many as we often hope. Advancing the field, you can apply to up to $25,000. So because, as Celeste outlined in the beginning, we're really trying to drive some outcomes around what it really looks like to advance Black arts in the city. We feel that this stream is able to support those who want to create and present. In addition to creating and presenting their artwork, they really want to specialize their efforts to improving the overall arts ecosystem for Black cultural workers in the region. So this is not just about artistic production. It may include that, but it's really about advancing the ecosystem in all Black artists and cultural workers. Accordingly, the funds are available to support projects aimed at shared challenges, barriers, opportunities. I will skip ahead a little bit. collaborative projects, research, marketing, advocacy efforts that increase the health and visibility of the arts, the Black arts sector beyond a single artistic engagement. A broad-scale, sector-wide advocacy aimed at the Pittsburgh community as a whole is encouraged. So some of these proposals might look like, oftentimes we hear about not having the writers or the media outlets that can appropriately critique work. Well, you don't have anyone who even understands Black culture on your staff, so how are you writing a review of my work? If you don't understand the cultural context, you really can't evaluate if my work is good or not. And so because of that, sometimes we've put down, or people have talked about funding cultural criticism. What would it look like to, and there are some artists who've done that locally, right? What would it look like to support writers who will be able to provide cultural criticism? What does it look like to help with board development? You see on that list just some other things that we know have been challenges in the ecosystem based on what we hear from the field: mentorship, succession planning. If you want to tackle any of those things, not just for yourself and not just through your artistic work, but for the ecosystem, you have the ability to apply for up to $25,000 to do that. And last but not least, project support. So project support, you can apply for up to $20,000. These funds are specifically for nonprofit organizations and collectives. So if you're an individual artist, you should likely apply for the individual artist stream. But if it's a collective of artists, or if you are a nonprofit organization and you want to do a project, then you can apply for grants up to $20,000 to present and or produce a work. Individual artists are not eligible and should instead apply through the individual artist funding stream. I'm going to skip some of this and just say preference will be given to arts organizations or other nonprofits that can demonstrate the ability to present or produce creative work. Preference will also be given to those organizations that emphasize significant community engagement in the project. Projects in the areas of Black media and journalism, as well as projects that specifically address issues of social justice and equity, are also welcome. Oftentimes you cannot apply for those things. In this fund, we welcome them. So that is all. I'm going to, again, I would just say, sorry, take note of, please note, we say it again, individual artists are not eligible for project support. We give preference to arts organizations, but other nonprofits can apply, but we do give preference to arts organizations. And preference is also given to those who have significant and emphasize significant community engagement. All right, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Celeste for the other streams. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shonda. The next stream, girl, mute please, mute. The next stream is the Above Ground Railroad grant, and this is actually a grant that is specifically for Black students who are pursuing higher education in a career in arts administration. And it's a response to the Gender Equity Report, giving preference to Black women. You get to apply for $10,000, and it's unrestricted. You can use it however you want, but you must be a student. Again, to reiterate, these applications are due the first Monday in May. Again, due the first Monday in May. Continuing on in the funding stream, we also have planning grants. We accept planning grants twice a year, once the first Monday in May, and the second one the first Monday in October. And these are funds that will help you kind of think through a project, do some research, get some partners together, to work on a project. And again, $5,000, and you can apply the next year. Unlike with the other funding streams where you couldn't apply for the following year, a planning grant, you can come back in to apply for support for that next opportunity. Now, the special opportunity grants, you can apply for up to $10,000, and they have to be unique opportunities that have not yet occurred and are time sensitive and cannot wait to the next grant cycle. These are not things that happen annually. These are not things that the project that you just want to do. These are not things like, it really has to be a time-sensitive special opportunity that you cannot have access to at any other time. If you have other projects, we encourage you to look at the other funnels of support, but for special opportunity, reiterating that it has to be a time-sensitive, really once-in-a-lifetime type of opportunity. And then finally, there are the general operating support grants, where you can you apply to up to $50,000, and they are by invitation only. We have not sent out the invitations yet to the individuals who are general operating support cohorts, but we do anticipate sending it out within the next week or so. But those applications also are due the first Monday in May. So now I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague, Katie, who's going to run us through how to approach the slide room application so that you can apply.
Thanks, Celeste. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Potts. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white millennial woman with long brown hair. I have on a black turtleneck sweater, and I am joining you today from my home office. So before I share my screen, I just want to drop a few links into the chat. One will be the slide room portal, which you will go to apply for the grants. So there's the link to the slide room portal, and then also the Advancing Black Arts in Pittsburgh Toolkit. All right, and then Celeste earlier dropped the program guidelines. Okay, so now I will move over to slide room. Okay, so I will be reviewing the slide room portal. If you already have a slide room account, feel free to log in and follow along by selecting preview full application. To apply through slide room, you must first sign up for a slide room account or log into an existing account. So I actually am quickly going to log into my existing account so I can walk you through everything. All right, so once you either create your account or log into an existing account, this is what the portal will look like. Existing users, make sure to update your slide room profile, contact information to make sure it's up to date. If awarded, we use this information for grant processing, so it's important that it's the most up to date. And you can see here that there are 4 applications listed in the portal. Again, please refer to the guidelines to review the funding stream descriptions and eligibility requirements. Today, we will specifically look at the 2022 Advancing Black Arts in Pittsburgh Grant-Making Program. This includes the individual artist support, culturally relevant residency support, advancing the field support, and project support funding streams. So as noted here, the application includes 3 sections: forms, attachments, and media. So as I mentioned, there are 4 applications in the portal, depending on the funding stream you are applying for. Each application includes the same 3 sections, so forms, attachments, and media. The only thing that is different between each application will be the narrative questions in the forms section. So we'll start. We're not going to be reviewing every question step by step, but instead just highlighting a few things to keep in mind as you apply.
And it's also on a different panel thing. Yeah. And she told her what.
And then just a quick reminder to please stay on mute until we get to the Q&A portion. Let's see. At any time, feel free to email fundingarts@pghfdn.org for any questions you have about SlideRoom or the application. But we'll start with the form section. So the form section includes basic contact information, publicity information, the project narrative, and the funding stream selection. For this particular application, you must select whether you are applying as the artist, arts administrator, or as an organization. If you are applying as an artist or arts administrator, you may accept your grant as an individual or through fiscal sponsorship. If you are applying as an organization and your organization is not currently recognized as a 501c3 nonprofit, then you must use a fiscal sponsor. You will then provide your publicity information. Again, if awarded, we'll use this information in our communications. You'll then move on to the project narrative. So this includes project medium, project title, a brief purpose, goals of the project, the duration of the project, amount requested, and budget, which can be in Word, Excel, or PDF format. And then you will choose the funding stream which you plan to apply for. Again, for this specific application, that's either individual artist support, culturally relevant residency support, advancing the field support, or project support. And based on which one you select, you'll receive a few additional project questions. Once you complete the narrative questions, you'll continue on to the next step, which is the attachments. So, depending on whether you apply as an artist, an organization, or artist and or organization with a fiscal sponsor, you'll have to submit one of the following. So for individuals only, an IRS W-9 form. So this must include your individual taxpayer information and must match the current address in your SlideRoom profile. For 501c3 organizations, a 501c3 letter of determination. And for fiscally sponsored projects, please upload your current fiscal sponsorship agreement. And then we ask also for your lead, if you're an artist or an arts administrator, your CV. If you're a collective or an organization, please upload a PDF that describes any relevant experience or related projects. And for guidance on developing an artist CV, please refer to the Advancing Black Arts in Pittsburgh Toolkit, which I dropped in the chat. And then I also want to note that up at the top right, you can save and exit to save your answers and then come back to the application at a later time. Okay, so then once you upload your attachments, we get to the portfolio or the media section of the application. So each applicant is allowed a total of 5 media uploads. All applicants must use at least 1 media upload to submit sample work. The remaining 4 are available to submit work samples or background materials. And just a few things to note. Please highlight your best work and use the highest possible quality images, video, and sound. There are multiple ways to add your work, so you can upload images or sound and video directly. You can link to YouTube, Vimeo, or SoundCloud. We just ask that you don't link to anything that needs a password. And then you can upload a PDF with images and or links as well. So once you add your media, your application is ready to submit. And a reminder again that the deadline for grants, unless otherwise noted, is the first Monday in May or May 2nd, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. And I will stop sharing my screen and pass it back to Celeste and Shonda for questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. Again, we're willing and able and looking forward to entertaining any questions you might have. Ask that, do you just speak out or raise your hand, whatever you feel comfortable doing to ask your question. And please go back on mute if you're not answering or asking a question. It's good to see everybody.
Hey, I have a question. This is Juliana. I jumped in a little late. Something about if you received this grant before, you have to wait a year. Can you explain?
Juliana, you're a little bit choppy. Can you drop your question in the chat? Thank you. And Gregory, we see your question too, but you can't use private links for the video work samples unless you make it abundantly clear that these are the passwords to those links. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if people can't open them, they can't see your work. So it would be best if you like maybe something, some YouTube channel that's not associated to you or something, but something to have it so that people can easily obtain, the link so that they can see it.
Yeah, the private link it doesn't require a password. It's just a private link. So if you have that link, you can view it. The question though is, does the interface on Slide Room allow you to use a private link? So anyone with that link can see it. You don't need a password, but it is private. It's not a public video.
Okay. Yeah, that should be fine as long as they can click on it.
Yeah.
The issue.
But the issue isn't the link, it's about the interface with Slide Room. Will Slide Room accept the private link?
I think it should. If you run into issues, you can let me know, or there is a Slide Room help. They get back to you fairly quickly. Okay. But also you can reach out to the Funding Arts email, and we can reach out to Slide Room as well if there are any issues. But I think it should be okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Juliana's question is, if you received a grant, you have to wait a year to reapply. Can you explain that a bit? Are you able to apply for a different stream of funding? The only time that you can apply for a different stream of funding is if you received a planning grant. Then you can come back in the next grant cycle. But if you received any other grant, you can't come back in until you take a year off. Okay, Takia, if I'm saying that right.
You are. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. So my question is maybe a little bit complicated. I actually own the first hemp edibles company in the state of Pennsylvania. And I have been having a really hard time finding grants and support. So my question is, is this something that you would fund? It is an art, I'm a culinary artist, I bake pastries, I have, all that stuff, but I was wondering if I would be denied just for that, or if I should give it a try.
So because it's culinary art, and depending on how you write your application, I think that first of all, you got to tell me what's the edible base.
So it's hemp. So I have hemp. So it's any of the cannabinoids that are within hemp, and of course hemp is legal in all 50 states. I have all my paperwork, everything, all the legit paperwork and everything for it. It's 100% legit, and I just am having the hardest time to find funding, to help me get a.
I feel you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get a food truck, and it's really difficult for me to actually do that, get the funding for it.
No, okay, I feel you. I just had to make sure that you wasn't asking me if we was gonna fund the weed edibles.
No, ma'am.
I mean, not through this stream. I might slide through myself, but not from this stream. So
no, ma'am.
But no, you can apply for it because it is under culinary arts. And Shonda, you can let me know if you feel differently, but I feel like you can apply for it. And then what the decision is made through a, a panel, right?
Okay.
And so as long as your application can demonstrate that it is in fact culinary art, make a case for it, and then, we'll see what the panel says. Again, Shonda and I don't make the decisions directly when we run things through the panel. So, write it up, see what happens. I
Okay.
encourage you to try to apply.
I love that. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't an absolute no, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Celeste.
Yes, ma'am. Shonda, do you want to add anything to that? Or are you good?
No, I'm good. If y'all see me squinting, I'm just looking at the things in the chat. I think that was.
Okay. If I skip somebody's question that we haven't answered in the chat, let me know, because I'm just going by the hands right now. All right, brother,
Okay,
go ahead.
so before.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bass?
My question is more like, so if I have if the project that I'm looking to do, it might require more funding than this. And if I'm applying, am I still allowed to apply for grants? Like I'm still new to the grant application process. This is a new venture. But am I able to apply for like this to pay for a certain portion of this project versus the entire project?
Yeah, you can. You can always put the entire project, even though it might exceed, and then talk about how you're going to fund it in the other, like if you're going to apply to another type of grant to, you can put the whole thing in there so that people can see the totality of what you're trying to do. But if you want to just, do a little piece of it, you can. I think you should put the whole picture in there so that people can feel it. If you just, be like, I want to get paintbrushes, then that might not get the whole story, right? And so try to tell as much of it as you can in your proposal, but make sure your budget reflects where the other funding is going to come from.
Yeah, okay. And is there because I'm interested in the advancing the fields grant with my organization. So is there like another time to get more information about that? Because I saw that you said you guys didn't receive a lot of applications for that, and I just want to make sure that what my project is actually something that would fit that as well.
Is this something that's going to benefit the Black arts in general, or is this something that's going to benefit your organization, or both?
Both. I mean, like in short, like a very short and very abbreviated version of what I'm saying is I'm looking to expand tabletop gaming and tabletop gaming creation in the urban community. So not just, but like this I'm looking to create something to help youth create their own worlds and play and also use tabletop gaming and showing the benefits of how it can be used as an educational tool. So it's something that I think would benefit not just me, but hopefully the whole city and most Black people.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, is it's supposed to be beyond just the one organization. And so you can feel free to approach for funding, and then again, the panel will make the decision. But if you really do want to get like more into the nitty gritty, just email us and then we'll try to find a time to connect.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Shonda, you were going to say something before we go to the next set of hands?
Sure. So I'll take some of the things that are in the chat. So the Sarah McGuire about the Heinz History Center, a couple of things. So a planning grant might be the best way to start. Planning grants are generally $5,000. So if it was a planning grant that's going to help you do the work you need to do in advance of the exhibition, that's fine. But if you're dealing with archival material from the National Negro Opera House and things like that, it seems like that would be a pretty extensive project that might require more funds. And I do think, Celeste can let me know if she agrees or disagrees, I do think that could also qualify as a project grant in and of itself. The curation, documentation, research, and all of that in preparation for the exhibition, I think that is a project. I will also say part two of that answer is that we do give preference to Black-led organizations. And so if we see something coming from the Heinz History Center, it does not mean that you will be excluded, but I do think it's necessary, particularly in a time when we all are aware that the National Negro Opera House is trying to come back online, that those two things would not be from this program fund looked at mutually exclusively, you know, right? It's like, what would be our priorities as the program officers and the foundations funding this specific stream? And so that's just something to think about. But it is clearly important work, and we do know the work of Sam Black and his history of working in this area and in this field. And so we honor his contributions and everything that he and his wife have done relative to the culture. So I think it's, you know, just want to be clear about that. And I think I saw one more. If you're asked to be a panelist, you can recuse yourself when your grant comes up. So if Celeste or someone has asked you to be a panelist, they've probably thought about the fact that you might also apply. Traditionally, how we've handled that is you just will recuse yourself. Both Celeste and I, even as program officers, have been in that situation. So if something comes up and it's relative, or it can even be perceived, we will leave the room, the deliberations happen, and then we return.
Yeah, we haven't extended any invitations just yet. And usually we review the applications first. And if you're applicant, it's very rare that we would extend an invitation to be part of the panel. But like Shonda said, if it did happen, that's how we would handle it.
The last one I'll answer before we go to hands is Ms. Newkirk. She's asking if students who are artists can apply for both the individual and the student grant, hoping they receive one, or should they pick one? I also see Naomi's in there. Okay, so I will say, and again, ask, you know, for my colleagues to chip in, I think, and we think, it's always difficult when people apply for like multiple streams, right? Because you're at some point you're competing against yourself. And so it's not that we would say a student cannot apply both as an individual artist or also for the above ground railroad, but sometimes to panelists, your peer panelists, it could look like indecisiveness, not as kind of clarity about two different things that you're trying to explore. So I would just be careful. You can apply to both. I don't think we have a rule that says you cannot, but I've seen multiple applications cause more harm than good when there's not clarity around what you're really trying to do. And then Naomi says, are you able to apply for both advancing the field and individual artists? I think you can, but Celeste, can you correct me? And Katie, I think you can do both if you wanted to.
You can, but I think it's the same thing. If you're going to apply for more than one, I was looking at the deadline, the guidelines though, because I thought that we said one stream. So Katie, if you could scan the guidelines for us, and then we'll come back to that question in a second, because I ain't memorized all of it, plus, you know, memory.
No, but you know the point, so your point we made, if we did add it, it was because we experienced so many people applying for more than one thing, and it was doing more harm to them than it was doing good.
Yeah, but we don't, you know, but if we did not put it in there, I don't want to say don't. To your point, we give the cautionary tale, but if Katie, if you could just look at those real quick, and then we'll come back to that question. Brittany, your hand is up. How can we help you?
Hi. So my question is in terms, I guess, two questions. So one is for the general operating support. What are, I guess, the guidelines for being invited for that? What does that look like? And then my second project.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. You can ask it.
About the project support, just more a clarity of, is that like with a nonprofit organization and collaborating with artists to do something? Is that the basis of that applying for that grant?
So with the Gen Op, we're actually at the point of actually making some guidelines for inviting individuals to be part of the general operating support cohort. Because real talk, we inherited a cohort, And we have been thinking through what it looks like to, invite other people to the cohort. So in 2023, you should see new people coming into the cohort. But as of 2022, it's just a long-term support for individuals who have been part of the cohort, just being completely transparent. The second part of your question in terms of project support grants and say it again for me, sis, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I guess I just wanted clarity about when you're talking about project support, it's really about collaboration of like maybe a nonprofit organization and then artists and them doing stuff together. Because you had, when you were explaining it, you were saying you want to hear like the artist's voice, or do I
that's not for project support. That was for residency. So project support is like if you have something specific that you're working on, like when Greg asked about like if he's working on a film and he's like, I'm gonna do this film, this is the project, this is what I need the money for.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's very, something very specific like that.
Okay, got it. But residency is more of like a collaboration with artists and an organization.
And the organization, yeah. Okay. Or if it's one that you decide, this is the one where we have your own, you can either be an artist with an organization, or you can, think through your own process and put in for one as well. For an arts administration. So like if you, for instance, if somebody needs somebody that works in the field of arts administration, and they need somebody to do like bookkeeping or something like that, you can put in for that type of support.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Kiana? Am I saying it right? Kiana Williams?
Yes, Kiana. Sorry, I have two screens up. My computer's being weird. But yeah, so I had, I guess, like, I don't know, two general questions. So the first is, so I'd be applying as an individual, and I'm applying for a program that would be kind of interdisciplinary, including different genres of art, inclusive of music, dance, and doing hair with natural hairstyles. Now I know, do you consider like cosmetology a part of the arts for these purposes? I wanted to know that first.
Girl, did you see Black people and how we do hair? Absolutely, nails, all of it, right? And it's because it's also about, if you've seen BAPS, right? It's about our culture right now. So what happens though? It really don't matter what Shonda or I see as art. What matters is the panel and how they see art. And most of the panels actually, we choose artists as our panelists, right? And so how y'all think artists got probably the most expansive, the breadth of how we see art and everything, right? And so I know I'm going on and on. So the short answer is yes. Yes, you can apply.
Okay. And so, sorry, what was that?
I was just gonna say, this is like also a broader thing that I just think needs to be said before you go to part two, which is like Celeste and I both know, and many of you know, if there's ever gonna be a fund where you can apply for it, this is gonna be the one, because you're not going nowhere else talking about your hair and your nails in that I know in Pittsburgh, and they're gonna be like, let me give you some money for that. So I think like if you're gonna shoot your shot, it needs to be an advancing Black art if it's relative to culture.
Okay, awesome. So with that being said, when it comes to highlighting the work for the media uploads, since this is to be requesting funding for a program, is it okay to highlight some of the other artists that would be a part of that program instead of just the applicant, even though the award would go to one person, so that it can fund and pay for the other artists that are coming together for that program? And if so, I was trying to figure out like what particular stream was the most appropriate from what's out there, like if it is better for project support or the advancing field support, or individual artists. Like I just wasn't really sure like what would be the most appropriate, because it's, highlighting different art streams, but also has an educational piece with you know, the barriers that we experience in the Black community with hairstyles and accepting our Blackness through our hair, and how we can break down some of those generational traumas that a lot of Black and brown people have associated with the hair that grows out of their head, and how we're perceived professionally and artistically in that manner. So I just really wasn't sure. It seems like it kind of fits into different areas, and I wasn't sure what you all might think might be the best fit for that.
I would, leave it up to you to make the final decision, but it seems more project support to me.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion. It could be,
Right.
Once you write it out and you be like, nah, this is really not project. You know what I mean? But if you're collaborating, absolutely put the collaborators in there. Everybody, we all have collaborators. And so, for people to really understand capacity and how you're going to carry out what you're applying for, be as honest as you can about all of the pieces that go to make it happen. Okay.
And are individuals eligible for the Advancing the Field Support one? Or is that just for
No,
organizations?
it could be one person that's doing the work, but just be mindful. And I'll pass the mic to Katie to talk about what the guidelines said about that question about whether or not we can apply for more than one. But yours is specifically about if one person can apply for it, and the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Katie?
Can I just, before Katie talks about because she did drop in the chat that you can only apply for one, but I also just want to point everyone to the values that Celeste outlined in the beginning. So when we talk about working collectively, when we talk about, we often have said, and many people on this call, many of you, Sister Salida, Billy, I can name all the names. It's Kuji Jakalia. Like you, in your writing of what you're doing, I think the whole way that we've formed even some of the values and parsed what was left for us and how we've built upon it has to do with interdependence, ecosystem support. Those are big words, but it really means how are you going to describe in your application how you are advancing, working in a cultural way with the artist. And I think we want to see that too. We just don't want to see, I'm Black and I'm applying, so I should get the money, right? That we know that that's true. But what we also want to see is you understand the fundamental principles that we're trying to advance through the program, which have to do with working together, edifying one another, building pathways for other people, documenting history. Those values are really important. And I think a competitive application will be able to tie what you're trying to do with the ways in which it represents and reflects building generational wealth and all the things we know are important. So just want to tie it back again to the values and how that connects to the work that you're doing.
Katie, do you want to point to where that says that you can only apply for one funding stream? And then Ms. Elaine, just unmute after Katie and tell us, you can ask your question. I'm sorry, I put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I'm going back to look to give you a specific page on the guidelines. So it looks like it is on page 5 of the guidelines under program deadlines. It says prospective applicants may apply to any one of the following funding streams, then lists the funding streams. Again, that's on page 5 of the guidelines.
Thank you. Elaine Washington, you had a question.
Yes, how's everyone? I don't know if this is the right setting for this, but perhaps somebody can guide me if not. But I have applied for through the Pittsburgh State House Historical Preservation Office for a historical marker for Earl Father Hines in the city of Duquesne. His home is still standing. And I'm seeking funding for his plaque. And this may not be the set platform, but I just happen to see it about artists. And since he's a old jazz artist and his home is still standing in the city of Duquesne, and it was approved. And I was just seeking funding. And if this is not the right platform, perhaps someone can direct me to see if, is there any way possible that I can.
Do you know how much that request will be?
$1,700.
Can you send an email that the email we sent earlier today, funding arts?
The grant at PG.
Yeah, that one.
I
Yeah,
did write it out.
Send an email to us. I mean, I'm not going to say you couldn't apply for it, but I also don't, if it's, and I think it probably would get approved through a panel. I don't see nobody saying no, but it may not have to go that route. So let's troubleshoot. And if we aren't able to troubleshoot outside of the funding stream, then you can feel free to apply.
Okay, and by the way, I'm enjoying, this is my first time and I'm enjoying everyone. I'm really enjoying it. And I appreciate seeing these young artists or, future artists seeking funding. This is very beautiful. And I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to have you. All right, y'all. Any more questions? We got 9 minutes.
I have a question.
Good, Shonda. Hey, Erica, go ahead.
So I just wanted to know, for the above ground railroad grant, the one for students, are students only pursuing a degree in arts administration? Are they the only students allowed to apply for the grant, not music? Not if you were a student would have gone for a music or theater degree?
Let's go and look at the actual verbiage. 1 second.
Okay.
So it is on page 9, Celeste. It says, will be awarded annually up to 3 Black students pursuing higher education in support of the pursuit of a career in arts administration.
Yeah, it's very specific to arts administration. Are they going, is it like musician or is it to support musicians? Like, what's the actual title?
It would be it's a bachelor's in theater and music.
Yeah, it's too general. It had to be very specific to arts administration.
Okay.
But it was something to think about. Thank you. Alexander?
Hello. I was just checking if you can further explain the preferences regarding a nonprofit's ability to demonstrate ability to present or produce creative works, as well as the emphasis on community engagement. Just like, what does that look like in the grant, or like how would someone explain or demonstrate that?
What page you looking at again? I told you I memorized all of this.
Sorry, that is page 9 on the program guidelines and process.
Okay. Now say your question one more again, sorry.
Regarding the preferences under the project support, it says other nonprofits may apply if they could demonstrate the ability to present or produce creative work. I was just wondering, like, what does that mean? Does it mean like if we have posted art before, if we had a space that's facilitated it? And then in regards to community engagement, is like, just, I guess, what does that look like formulated within the grant? Like, how would one to demonstrate those things?
So the first part, the first part of it is, it says the preference given to arts organization or other nonprofits that may apply if they can demonstrate ability to present and produce creative work. It's really talking specifically to organizations that we might entertain that aren't used to doing this type of stuff. They're really not about the arts life. They see a grant, they make something up at the last minute, blah, blah, blah. That part is really talking to individuals like that, not artists or people that are arts-based organization. The piece about significant community engagement means that it's just not, we will support our artistic practice through the individual artist portal, right? And so you don't necessarily have to have realized work or things of that nature, but for this piece, you should have realized work, and there should be some type of community engagement, right? So maybe if it's a visual painting, it's an art gallery. If it's a film, it's a showing. If it's a book, it's a reading, or a book that's the final, outcome. But there has to be a part that you are engaging with community in the finished work, that and on a significant level, not just showing your mama and them, but actually putting that work out to the community.
Awesome, thank you.
Now I could just making all that up, Shonda. Is that how you see it too? Because I'll be out here lying. Just want to make sure.
No, I mean, I think that, but I would also add that, you know, there's a certain level of support you as artists need when you're working with an organization, right? And sometimes you partner in an even if everyone has the best intentions, you know, the organization may be like, we close at 2:00. And you're like, well, I don't really get started till 3. You know, that's when my juices start flowing, which means then they offered you a space, but they're never there and don't have the staff to make sure you can get there and work. So when we talk about the feasibility of the organizations, it really has to do that they are fit to support what you need as an artist. And the other thing I was going to say, and I see Brett Allen on the call, is like when you talk about community engagement, I look at the film This Brother is Shooting. He has a lot of community people involved, a lot of actors, a lot of different people, right? Just in the work that he does in general. That to me is community engagement. And I think Celeste would agree. It's not about a traditional grant where you're trying to prove you got 10 Black people, 10 Asian people. Like I actually talked to someone who is Latina. No, we're saying, how are you actually making sure that you're engaged and involving people beyond just yourself if you're saying this is going to be a project that's reflective of culture? And, you know, it shouldn't be prescribed. So if it is in fact the way in which you work, which involves the artist, then just talk about that. You know, we don't want people pretending to be doing things that they're not, even inside this fund. So those are the only things I would add to what Celeste already shared.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to be able to say Slim Stario because that's just like, you know, the name. I'm feeling your name, sir. Slim Stario asked us if there are any grant writers on this call. Y'all can have permission to DM him are there any on this call? I don't see any just jumping off on me. I know people on here know how to write grants and might be able to support. But I can tell you, when I first started writing grants, I didn't know I was a grant writer either. And one of the things that I did to help myself was I interviewed the person I was writing for, or had somebody interview me. And then I took verbatim what the answers to the grant questions were, made sure that they were actually being answered in the application, because that's what they look for. If you don't answer the questions, you ain't getting no grant. So take the time to interview yourself, and then to make sure you know, every single one, record it, then go back and transcribe your answers, take all the cuss words out, and then submit the application. Okay, we got 2 more minutes. This is a whole paragraph. Is this to me specifically? Hold on, let me read it. Let's see. Yes, Billy's asking, can he get with either Shonda and I before submitting a proposal? And yes, in fact, I prefer if you get with us before submitting a proposal, then ask for feedback, because you ain't even the same artist in a year from now when you reapply. So the feedback you get ain't gonna even be applicable. So if you can get it to us early enough, we will give you some, you know, feedback, chop it up with you about your project or how you're approaching it. Absolutely. Send an email to that email address that I keep lying and saying what it is, but we dropped it there again. Somebody please drop it again. And we'll chop it up with y'all, you know, prior to the submission. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexander?
Oh, I forgot to put my hand.
Alexander?
I forgot to put my hand.
Oh.
All right, yeah, we got 1 minute, and I ain't staying on a minute past 4:30. So if y'all got some more questions, any concerns, let's spit it out in this last minute, or please send us an email to fundingarts@pghfd. That's how it works. Hope we've answered.
I could think of another question, if that works. Regarding the special opportunity, this is Alex. How does that work? Do we apply for the special opportunity in case there's something that pops up that we could be able to, because I know at the King's Association, we have artists or people who kind of come about and want to do a mural or something in some of our spaces. Is that kind of how that special opportunity grant works? Or I guess.
I mean, if you got an artist that's coming in from Cuba and it can only come in, you know, at May 5th at 2:00, that's a special opportunity, right? Because you would lose the opportunity. But if it's something that he could come whatever, or she come whatever, that is not a special opportunity. It really has to be something that, like, I got this opportunity, I got a residency in Italy, I don't have the money to get there, and I got to pay my way. Can y'all help me out?
Gotcha,
That's what we're talking about, like that. So
understood.
thank you for your question. Thank you
Or on the north
all
side.
for attending.
You're in the South Hills, you got a special opportunity on the north side. I mean, we love to think globally, but I'm just saying, you don't have to feel like it has to be an international opportunity. There may be a special opportunity that presents itself locally. You cannot do it without the support because of timing or because of whatever, I don't know. But the examples we've definitely gotten have been like Celeste mentioned. It's been like, oh, this group has visas. They're only in the country for this amount of time, and I want to do something with them. But I just don't want you all to feel like, oh, if it's not something more global, I wouldn't qualify. Just adding that.
Thank you.
That's true. Thank you for that. All right, family, you ain't gotta go home.
How much lead time do you need for the special opportunity? I'm sorry.
Well, as long as you can apply before the deadlines, you know, because you got one in May and one in October, and those are only times that we consider them. Katie, what's the turnaround for our application? Like if somebody put it in and we review it, and what's our internal processing time?
You mean for meeting to get?
So
like,
somebody comes in for a
before?
special opportunity grant, me and Sean review it. How soon can they get a check? Is it like weeks, months? Like what's the timeline?
I would say probably a month to 2 months, but I think we could probably get it. I want to say 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So please don't try not to wait to the last minute, even though we understand that it is time sensitive. We do our best to get it out to you quickly, but yeah.
And lastly, I do want to add, we recommend you start your applications in Slideroom as soon as possible. So if you haven't already created an account, logged in, and started your application, we do recommend starting that as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all. Greg, don't ask no more questions. That's it for you. Okay. No, so straight up, if you got questions, just email us. You all have the email address that Katie dropped in here 753 times because I can't remember nothing because I be going to Kia's place too often. So y'all let me know if y'all get any more questions. We'll do our best to assist y'all, send an email. But really, thank you for your attendance. The recording will be posted on somebody's website relatively soon. So if you need to go back and rethink some stuff, but it's a pleasure seeing you all and thank you for your interest in applying.